Writers, when you were in the fifth grade, some of you, and certainly lots of fifth graders across the country, you got involved in a debate for or against serving chocolate milk in school lunches. As part of that, you watched a video advocating for chocolate milk. I want you to watch a bit of that now. So go back to the lesson platform and watch the clip of the Midwest Dairy Council, and then come back to this teaching lesson. The fifth graders who were studying chocolate milk became pretty savvy consumers of videos and articles, and they weren't all 100% convinced by this video. Listen to what one fifth grader wrote about it.
The nutritionist from the Dairy Council claims that chocolate milk has essential nutrients and vitamins, and it doesn't have as much sugar as a lot of flavored drinks for kids. She also positions herself as a mom and has her kids with her. And the kids look really healthy. They are good advertisements for chocolate milk. Possibly even red herrings.
Notice how this student didn't go, okay, it has less sugar, let's drink it. Instead, he questioned the source and the information. He looked for the red herrings, just like you do in a mystery. This writer understood that you should study the information presented as well as who was presenting it and how they presented it. Writers, today I want to remind you that to develop a considered opinion, you need to read with a critical eye, not merely accepting what texts say. It helps to look not only for contradictions among sources, but also for the sources of those contradictions. And it helps to note the roles an authors play, the evidence the author seems to value and to ignore, and anything else that gives pause. I know you are already aware that a big part of research involves seeing connections and contradictions between the ideas and information presented to you. Writers not only need to read each source closely, they also need to read between their sources, asking, how does this information fit with that information? And now that you are in seventh grade, you need to go a step farther, thinking also, what is the source of this and of that contradiction? Critical researchers ask why an article only quotes the views of adults, or only refers to research from long ago, or only includes descriptions of individual cases and not broader statistics. Critical researchers also ask whether the author stands to gain from the position he advances. Might the author ignore other sources because he or she might stand to lose somehow from the information those sources contain? Critical researchers ask whose values are represented in this text, whose values are included, whose values are excluded. And critical researchers notice if anything is a source makes them uneasy. Most of all, critical researchers are like detectives, putting clues together to help them develop considered opinions. Some of you are researching whether a concern for safety should stop schools from sponsoring competitive sports. Let's look at the research together. I want you to first think of the following questions as you're listening to the text. 1, who wrote this? What's the person's role and what might he stand to gain from taking this position on the issue? And 2, think about whether there are patterns evident in the kinds and the sources of information that have been valued and ignored in the text. And think about anything else that gives you pause. I don't think you need to watch me do this before we try it. So I'll read an excerpt from an article from the Riddle Company website about one of the football helmets they sell, the Riddle 360. The article is titled Seeds of Innovation, Bringing a Game-Changing Helmet to Market. You'll need a copy of this article so that you can annotate as I read. Again, it's called Seeds of Innovation, Bringing a Game-Changing Helmet to Market. Notice, for starters, there is no mention made of a particular author. I'm going to read this straight through, but remember the questions that you are thinking about and listening for as I read. Seeds of Innovation, Bringing a Game-Changing Helmet to Market. The backstory of the Riddle 360 helmet. Just as the nation's top college and NFL teams were taking the field for the 2008 season, the Riddle Revolution Speed helmet was making its debut on fields across the country. With a host of innovative new features and benefits for athletes, the Revolution Speed would go on to earn the first 5-star rating awarded for protective helmet safety from Virginia Tech University. Immediately following the launch of the Revolution Speed helmet, the Riddle product development team gathered in its Rosemont, Illinois development lab. The team was proud of the engineering feat it had just accomplished, knowing the fruit of its labor would help make the game safer and more enjoyable for thousands of athletes. The Speed helmet was recognized for its advanced design, enhanced side impact protection, and quicker to release face mask. But discussion with this group had shifted to solving new challenges and putting their creativity to the test. In the case of the Speed, it was joining the Revolution family of helmets, whereas our new innovation was a clean slate and anything goes in the name of protection, said Ralph Infusino, product design manager for Riddle. The team knew it was no time to get complacent. The bar had just been raised, and the team's new great challenge had already been cast, creating a new helmet from the ground up that would push the envelope on player protection from every conceivable angle. For Riddle's product development team, these aren't mere words. Call it a way of life, an obsession, a calling. The core team of engineers boast a century worth of experience, having dedicated their careers to making helmets more protective and the game of football safer. In biomechanics, we are taught to apply engineering concepts to biological systems. In the case of football helmets, we work to reduce forces of impact of the player's head, said Thad Ide, Senior Vice President, Product Development and Engineering for Riddle. All of the hours in the lab helped us identify the designs and product features that best met our goals. Okay, I want you to pause and think about the notes, review the notes that you took so far, and see if there's anything else that you need to jot. So you may have noted that some of the information went against what you read in the previous days in other articles, like no helmet brand can save football players from concussion risk. That article said that even with helmets, players get concussions. So that's one piece of evidence that still needs to be unpacked and then related to the article that we just read. So the LA Times article said that even with helmets, a kid can get a concussion, but this website makes its helmet sound perfect. So we're critiquing the website article, and you're probably thinking some of those same things. Here's a tip. You can't just throw out sweeping conclusions like this website makes its helmet sound perfect. You most definitely need to back up your points with evidence. What does the text actually say? I want you to take a minute or two to reread and see what evidence you spot that you can cite. Readers, did you notice that I coached you to make your point by 1, if you suggest there is other conflicting evidence, quote that evidence exactly. 2, unpacking and explaining the evidence you cite from the source you are studying. And 3, giving evidence from the source you are examining instead of speaking in generalities. Now let's think about the second part that we were looking for, and that is, what sources did you notice this article using and not using? And what did you make of that? Look back through your notes for a minute to do this thinking work. And remember to use specific evidence to back up your thinking. So, did you notice who the text did quote and reference? Any observations about people it did not quote? For example, was there a quote from someone who wears the helmet, an athlete, a parent, or a coach? Did you also make note that the article makes its own people seem expert by calling them the core team of engineers, or talking about all the hours in the lab? So I want to try another activity where you are going to do some rereading. And this time I want you to underline words used in the article that gave a positive slant to these helmets or to sports in general. Writers and researchers. Part of the secret behind gaining a deeper understanding of the text and what surrounds the text is that you expect to see more than you read. This only works if you bring attitude to it. And once you start paying attention to all of the sparks of ideas that are flying around you, your next step is to put those ideas into words, into notes with full sentences. That will help you add more evidence and more thinking into your notes and eventually into your essay drafts. It was a lot of work that we did today, and it's now work that you need to bring into your writing. Okay, researchers, off you go.